Beyond Good and Evil, Part 2, The Free Spirit. In Chapter 2 of Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche introduces his idea of a new type of philosopher he calls the free spirit, as his spirit has become free from the prejudices that Nietzsche says have plagued philosophers up to now and have prevented them from doing true philosophy and genuinely inquiring into the nature of reality. The free spirit will be shaped by hardship and discipline. They will ask difficult and uncomfortable questions that others are too afraid to ask. They will pursue truth at all costs, even if it is threatening, and risk breaking down their whole understanding of reality. They will also be extremely aware of their own susceptibility to delusion, as they know that the easiest person to deceive is themselves. And so they relentlessly question the foundations and grounds of their beliefs to ensure that they do not become attached to a particular idea or belief that will lead them to becoming closed-minded and defensive over their views. Similarly, they will be skeptical and thus are able to distance themselves from their beliefs. This allows them to play with a whole variety of ideas without becoming attached to any of them. They can view them from a distance and can see their advantages and their disadvantages, their truths and their falsehoods. As we said, they will be able to question their core beliefs rather than just religiously defending them without considering their weaknesses or any alternatives. Moreover, they will examine their own and others' prejudices, motives and values. They will probe deeper into people's underlying motives and values, which, up to now, Nietzsche argues has not been done successfully, as too many of us are preoccupied with the superficial and surface level of these issues. And lastly, they will remain open-minded in order to explore and understand a large variety of ideas, rather than just adopting one pet theory early in life and then never even considering the truth or value in any other theory. Because of this openness, they are less susceptible to becoming biased and less likely to adopt double standards and so on. Nietzsche states that this new type of philosopher thrives in isolation and independence, but he makes it clear that this life is not for everyone. He declares that few are made for independence, it is a privilege of the strong. He goes on to explain how the free spirit understands that the truth is not necessarily tied up with the good, as many philosophers up to now have assumed. Instead, they recognise the potentially harmful nature of truth. Nietzsche writes, "Something might be true, although at the same time harmful and dangerous in the highest degree. Indeed, it could pertain to the fundamental nature of existence, that a complete knowledge of it would destroy one, so that the strength of a spirit could be measured by how much truth it could take." The free spirit's journey is so difficult, distant and foreign to the common man that they misunderstand him. Nietzsche elucidates on the difficulty of the journey that the free spirit takes and how foreign it appears to the rest of society. Nietzsche begins, "He ventures into a labyrinth. He multiplies by 1,000 the dangers which life as such already brings with it, not the smallest of which is that no one can behold how and where he goes astray, is cut off from others, and is torn to pieces limb from limb by some cave monitor of conscience." He goes on to say, "If such one is destroyed, perhaps by a crippling realization of the truth, it takes place so far from the understanding of men that they neither feel it nor sympathize, and he can no longer go back. He can no longer go back even to the pity of men." This reinforces how this path of the free spirit is a lonely one, and once the journey has begun, there is no going back. The common man misunderstands the free spirit in a particular way. They create a mask for him. Nietzsche writes, "Around every profound spirit, a mask is continually growing, thanks to the constantly false, that is to say shallow, interpretation of every word he speaks, every step he takes, every sign of life he gives." Nietzsche emphasises here how the more profound and deep the individual, the more likely it will be that they'll be misinterpreted and misunderstood. People prefer to give a mask to the philosopher rather than to see the philosopher's true self and their true message, as these messages that they give are usually highly threatening to their worldview. For example, the mask they may give him may be one of a madman, and thus, by labelling the philosopher as such, they do not have to take anything he says seriously, as these are just rantings from a madman. So creating a mask and labelling them in such a way allows them to remain in the comfort of their already established, yet, as Nietzsche would say, highly deluded worldview without letting it be shaken by some alternative. But the free spirit's isolation and misunderstanding by the common man is a tragic necessity, as it is just part of what it means to be a free spirit. However, for the sake of knowledge and in order to fully and truly understand humanity, he is willing to go down into society. This idea of a going down is explored in much more depth in Nietzsche's other famous work, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Nietzsche also introduces another idea in this chapter as well. It is his conception of the stages that morality has gone through in the past, where it is now and where it is likely to go in the future. The first stage that morality went through was what Nietzsche called the pre-moral stage. At this stage, the value of an action depended on its consequences, and no attention was really paid to the intention behind the action. But in the next stage, the moral stage, a change happened. It is no longer the consequences, but the origin of the action which determines its value. But Nietzsche thought that a great mistake occurred here, and that mistake was that the origin and value of an action was equated with the person's intention. But Nietzsche asks, what exactly was the source of this person's intention? Nietzsche thought that we mistakenly attribute full autonomy to people's intentions. We assume that they were completely in control when choosing their action, and their intention was the first cause of the action. However, Nietzsche states that the intention or motive is actually a mere symptom of some value rooted in an unconscious source. The intention was caused by something deeper, and thus we should not judge the intention, but we should look deeper, we should go beyond. And this gives rise to the third and final stage, called the extramoral stage. Here, the value of an action is what is unintentional in it. Since everything that happens about an action that is intentional just happens from the surface, and so we need to look into it beyond the surface level. A far more complex web of unconscious drives needs to be evaluated. To properly judge an action, we need to go beyond the person's intention into their core drives in order to see what really caused their action. In other words, we must look beyond the traditional conceptions of good and evil and see what governs them and what lies beneath them. Finally, Nietzsche emphasizes what he introduced in chapter 1, and this is that our knowledge is based upon falsification of reality. Our will to ignorance leads us away from the harsh truth and towards a comfortable and simple falsification of reality. And this is one of the distinguishing features between the common man and the free spirit. The free spirit leads himself away from the comfortable falsifications of reality that has become so commonplace, and instead he leads himself towards the harsh truths of reality that many are too afraid to go after. One of the reasons for why Nietzsche thinks that falsification of reality is so widespread is that it is inherent in the nature of language. He states that language cannot get over truth's coarseness. In other words, language, by its very nature, cannot grasp truth. For example, as we spoke about in chapter 1, just because we talk about the I as being a cause in language, it doesn't mean that it is in reality. Yet, many people make this mistake and thus believe in free will, which Nietzsche believes is a mistake. Nietzsche asks, ought the philosopher not to rise above the belief in grammar? The free spirit looks beyond the surface level of language and aims to look deeper and go further than any philosopher has done before in their pursuit of truth. Thank you very much for watching, and be sure to like if you found the video useful and subscribe for more videos. See you next time on Feeling Philosophical, and goodbye.